something that we really get confused on sometimes about when it's required and when it's not required, and what are the pieces. Realistically, the best starting process is to figure out what codes apply. Is it NFPA? Is it the building codes? Determine if ECS and MNS is required, and this is going to be defined by the building type or the occupancy type that you're dealing with. You know, we want to make sure that we have design standards from the ownership group that might require emergency communication system being installed at their request, not as a standard for the authority having jurisdiction. And also review the design criteria that might be available to you as an owner, saying this is exactly what we want to do. Local amendments are another thing we need to address. Major cities, in most cases, will have local amendments. We want to make sure that we understand those local amendments and how they might impact the overall massification or ECS installation and design. We want to make sure that if there's anything from the local codes that strike out ordinances. We also want to understand if there's any additional design requirements that they might require. And we want to make sure that we're working with the local authorities because we want to make sure that they can give us guidance on the overall approval process. We want to bring those local authorities in as quickly as we possibly can during the design process, because they'll be able to provide us with direction and assistance as we go through the process. When you look at the different building codes and emergency communications codes, there's a lot of different ones out there that require or have language in them that talk about mass notification emergency communication systems, including NFPA 101, the IBC, the IFC, the UFC, and potentially the owner's design standards. Realistically, when you start looking at the thought process of developing or designing an emergency communication system, realistically you want to start looking at those pieces and figure out if it's actually required or if it's something that's an optional situation. We also want to look at these different codes when we start talking about actually designing the system. If you're talking about a government facility, the UFC criteria will provide you with specific directions on what requirements are outlined for performance, the systems, the equipment, all the way down to the strobe colors. If you're looking at private industry or a university setting, NFPA 72 becomes a very good resource when it comes to understanding the design criteria and requirements for emergency communication system. In NFPA 72 2010 edition, Chapter 24 was developed, and it provided us with a chapter in the document that allowed us to be able to provide specific requirements from a performance standpoint for the emergency communication systems. It started in 2010 as a Chapter 24, and it's been enhanced in this current, the new edition in 2013. NFPA 72 Chapter 24, it basically provides, information in Chapter 24 for the protection of life by indicating the existence of emergency situations and communicating that information to. The ECS is intended to communicate information about emergencies, including but not limited to fire, human-related events, and other situations. Realistically, the biggest thing I look at from an emergency communication standpoint is you're going to utilize this system more often